I cannot move on from an affair that my wife had a long time ago. My wife and I have been married for quite some time. A year into our marriage it was pretty rocky. We didn't communicate well, got into arguments easily. We were young and stupid. She had an affair with a colleague. I found out about the affair through a mutual friend a few years later. At first she denied it because we were both still friends with the colleague, and then she finally came out with it. It was a rough few weeks. In fact, looking back on it now, it was really all a blur. We tried to work on our relationship and get things right because we had young kids at the time and didn't really have a strong support system. We're still together. A few years ago I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer and had half my thyroid removed. Ever since, my hormones have been seriously under duress. I suffer from extreme bouts of depression and anxiety and have recently started therapy. After all of this started happening, I brought it up to her that I was having a hard time moving on from it, and she was caught off guard because she had thought I was able to move on. The colleague had been far removed from our life and we disassociated with other friend groups that were around at that time. But the circumstances around the affair, I can't seem to move on from. She told me that she did it to get back at me from when we were dating in high school, and that she has forever felt awful about it and it makes her sick to her stomach. She hates when I bring it up because it opens up old wounds that she has been trying to mend. Her story has pretty much remained the same for the past many years that went by. She's stuck with it only happened once and she felt guilty from it and didn't do it again. But I can't seem to get away from how did this happen? How did she decide on this person that was our friend? She involved other people, so others knew about it but never came to me. To incredibly unhealthy thoughts like, why did she do that with him, but when I asked her to do it with me she refused. Was she wearing her wedding ring during? Were they listening to music? To how do you go from chatting to having with someone without any regard to your spouse being in another room? I really want to move on from this. I love and adore the ground she walks on, and I know it hurts us both to move on from this. But I don't know how. Comment. This is why most PPL don't recommend reconciliation for affairs. The offender tries to just move on and dismiss your feelings while you're left feeling the betrayal. The pain never goes away, time dulls it, but it's always there in the back of your mind. Therapy will help you understand your feelings, but it will never erase the fact that your wife cared so little for your feelings they cheated on you. What's worse, in your situation she said she was doing it to get back at you, so she was intentionally trying to hurt you. That's close people hurting you in general, family, friends, so. They almost always want to just say they're sorry, and they may even legit feel remorse, but sorry is for when you run into a person with your shopping cart or in a bout of stress, snap at someone. Maybe I've read too many trashy stories, but when you do something really, really bad intentionally to someone, I think you gotta step up and do something more than just I'm sorry and I feel guilty, whether you want to label it making amends, helping your victim move through the incident, self-flagellation, whatever. Exactly from what he described, she only cares about her pain and suffering, not for his. She wanted to hurt him, now he's hurt and she can't deal with it? Oh come on. I feel so bad for Op cause he is trying, and hurting himself even further trying to give her what she wants. I have a friend who cheated on his wife, but admitted it to her, without being confronted, and before she found out herself, apologized sincerely, and even posted a mea culpa that friends saw online, presumably with her approval, though I don't know. They had a rough time of it, but seemed to move on a number of months later, or at least, he thought so. I wasn't close enough to her to get her perspective at the time. She still divorced him over it, a bit over a year later. He was shocked. He realized divorce was a likely outcome when he came out about it, but thought if it were to happen it would have happened sooner. By the time it came, he thought he was already past the hump and the main danger, so he was blindsided. But it never really goes away. You can apologize all you want, as sincerely as you want, even circumvent the step of anyone finding out by telling them yourself, but that hurt will never go away. Agreed. Most people rug sweep the affair thinking that the sooner they'll put it all behind, the sooner they'll be able to get back to normal. However, they fail to understand that there is no going back to how things were. You may have a fresh start with lots of therapy, commitment, and honesty, but things will never be the same as they once were. No matter how much you have moved on, one wrong move and everything goes back to square one. So she had an affair, then kept it hidden with no intention of coming clean until it was revealed by a third party, who was aware of it for years. She continues to involve a fair partner in your shared life together, only stopping after being exposed years later. After being exposed, she tried to lie her way out of it, lying to your face before coming clean. She quite literally exhausted all other options before she chose the truth. She only told you because she was backed into a corner, not out of love or respect. Then to top it all off, she blames you for her betrayal and convinces you she did it for revenge, so that you can shoulder some of the blame and she can, once again, avoid taking full accountability for her actions. And after all of this, she emotionally manipulates you not to bring it up because it reopens old wounds for her. So she's once again a victim and you are partially at fault, and it's your responsibility to protect her feelings by bottling up your own. I pity you. You're clearly so deeply affected by decades of manipulation and half-truths and her deflecting blame with any opportunity. You deserve better. You still deserve better, but I fear you're too far gone to ever seek better for yourself. I genuinely don't think it's fear of being alone. I think he genuinely is brainwashed that she loves and respects him and they can move past this. He does not see this as an issue worthy of divorce. He sees this as a personal issue he needs to fix for himself, inside himself, instead of recognizing that the root of his unhappiness is his trust and self-worth being irrevocably fractured by his wife's rug sweeping of her affair. Like he genuinely doesn't realize the gravity of his wife's selfishness and manipulation throughout their entire marriage. She has basically convinced him that his lingering discomfort with her betrayal is in his head, and it's wrong for him to still be upset by it. This is how he's been socialized for the last 20 years, so he no longer recognizes how wrong his wife's actions are. It's honestly very sad. How scared are you, Op? 10 years after her affair was all a blur because you were walking on eggshells hoping to not end up alone. Sounds like you did the pick-me dance even if she never was going to leave you for him. So you buried everything and now it's creeping out and she's mad because you're upsetting her chi. Number 1. There is no timeline stating when you have to be over her affair. So I'd shut that down immediately. Do you really believe it was only one time? How can you trust anything she told you? She was freaking out when she got caught, she was lying and trickle-truthing. I'd start individual counseling and figure out why you put a wayward on a pedestal. I think you need to be equal with her. So go to individual counseling, figure out yourself more. Did you confirm with AP it was only once? How about the other mutual friends? Next story 2. I am tired of feeling like my husband's secretary. I've talked to my husband about this before but I don't know how else I can frame this anymore because he doesn't seem to get it. My husband is the type of person who likes to delegate and ask for things to be done for him. Part of it is that acts of service is his love language. And I totally want him to feel loved. But sometimes it makes me feel like a servant in my own home. For example, he will go hours without anything to drink but the second I get up, will ask for a glass of water, even if I'm not headed towards the kitchen. Or if he decides to deep clean something, he will decide that part of that work needs to be done by me. Whereas when I decide to deep clean something, I just do it all myself. English is not his first language, and he's never really used computers much, so in the past he's asked me to proofread important emails for him. I have no problem doing this. But he got a new job last year that requires a lot more emailing for him, and now I basically have a second job every night as his secretary and am literally writing all his emails for him, even basic ones like "sounds good, let's do that." I've told him I'm happy to look them over but didn't want to write them for him anymore. He apologized, but after a couple weeks here we are again, with me doing all the work. A couple nights ago he got a new lamp for his bedside table. Where did he put his old one? On my table, even though I didn't ask for it nor have I ever had one there. He said if I didn't want it I could ask the kids or just toss it. Why is this my responsibility? Last night we had a tiff and now aren't speaking to each other. I was sitting in the middle of our small couch, folding laundry. The coffee table in front of the couch had a lot of junk on it. He comes over with his laptop, yay, more work for me, and asks me to make room. I scooch over. But he just keeps looking at me, wordlessly, expecting me to clean the table for him too. I shoved everything over very annoyed and just snapped good enough now, and he got mad and went to the dining table to finish his work, and didn't ask me for anything else that evening. For the record, this is not a man who expects me to be a maid. We split the daily chores. He cooks, cleans, does laundry, runs errands, contributes to the mental load, etc., all without prompting. Which I know seems like the bare minimum, but I wanted to make it clear this isn't some weird gender thing, or weaponized incompetence to get out of household responsibilities. but for some reason he still makes me feel like his assistant in my own home. Comment. My husband does this to me and I always tell him I don't work for him. I am not his staff, and when he does a project or wants to clean, doesn't mean he gets to assign tasks to me. Plus, if you ask me to do the dishes, I'm going to do them on my schedule, not his. It is a continual fight. So does he cater to your love language? You talk about how he feels loved, but didn't mention he makes you feel loved. I'm wondering if part of the problem is that he is not meeting your needs emotionally. Also, you should 100% not be touching his work email. An occasional read-through of a big email is maybe okay, but writing all his emails is weird and borderline unethical. Depending on his job, it might actually be a huge breach of ethics. He's got to let you love him. Acts of service should be freely given. It's one thing to ask your honey for an out-of-the-way or inconvenient favor occasionally, and another to expect them to stop what they're doing to cater to them immediately with no regard to your agency. He's making it your job to take care of him when love is about doing that by choice. Editing, because I saw further down where you explained his traumatic childhood. That's really tough, but it is still his responsibility to heal himself. Maybe talk to him about how you perceive his long language as acts of service, and you'd like the opportunity to show him you love him by your own internal motivation rather than having the behavioral equivalent of being asked, "Do you love me?" 50 times a day. So I have a hard time asking people to do things for me as well, because I don't like asking for help. I prefer to just suck it up and do it myself. I think it comes from years of my older siblings making me do things for them and them never returning the favor. My BF of 4 years, he asks me for back rubs and shoulder rubs at least once a week. He would also ask for little favors like grabbing water for him, etc., similar to your husband's requests. At first it used to annoy me and I almost said something about it, but then one day I reflected and realized that he does so much more for me without me even having to ask. If I'm out of something or forgot to pick up something on the way home, he'll volunteer to run to the store because he knows I hate leaving the house after I'm already home. He brings me little treats constantly without me having to ask. If I mention needing to do something that I consider a big or annoying task, he will volunteer to do it and never ever throw it back in my face. It really made me realize that I appreciate all the little things he does for me, way more than I dislike giving shoulder rubs. Maybe you can find things that your husband does for you that you appreciate more than you hate doing those little favors. Those acts of service aren't meant to be treated like a maid/personal assistant/secretary, e.g. ordering you to do something. It means you feel loved because someone does something that you didn't order because that person thought about you. Like, you know he has a stressful day tomorrow and has to get up much earlier than you. You decide to also get up and prepare him a breakfast even though you could sleep much longer. The difference is that he is not expecting/demanding/asking for it. Instead it's your own idea because you love him and know it makes him happy. That's what's it about feeling loved through an act of service. I don't think a lot of people even understand the concept of love languages, whether they believe in it or not. For example, acts of service are a way for a person to show they love their partner, and when it's someone's love language, it means they feels more loved when their partner does something for them out of love instead of verbal affirmations or other ways of expressing their affection. It does not mean that they relegate all actions to be passed on to their partner. Acts of service are about you choosing to express your love for your partner by making breakfast, bringing them coffee, doing a chore for them, etc. It doesn't mean you're literally at his service for things he doesn't want to do. If your love language is physical touch, does that mean he has to be intimate or even snuggle with you 10 times a day irrespective of how busy he is or what else he has going on? Of course not. You need to stop doing these things. He's not forcing you. You simply choose to be his secretary. Why don't you tell him no? That he can do it himself? You need to stand up for yourself.